I found myself tailgating at a small town college football game. And I, of course, didn't realize that on game day in a small town, you're to only talk about football all day. Well, of course, I had nothing to add to those conversations, so I found myself just rotating between saying the wrong things and then saying nothing at all. And we get there to this tailgate, and I spot this guy who looked just as awkward as me. So I thought, that's the guy that's going to make it acceptable for me to be here at this tailgate. And he starts telling me that he does cancer research and that he has a PhD. And throughout this conversation with Brad, I just felt this energy. And I thought, maybe somebody like me from my kind of neighborhood could get a PhD. And I experienced what I could only call this personal sense of potency. Now, Albert Bandura was a psychologist and a researcher who studied this personal potency, and he called it self-efficacy. And he said self-efficacy beliefs are our belief in our ability to do something successfully, despite barriers, and to exert some level of control over our environment. And he noticed that people that have these high self-efficacy beliefs actually set loftier goals. They dream bigger. They actually work harder at accomplishing those goals. And despite when barriers happen, they keep persevering. It sounds simple, but he believed that if we have a belief in our ability to do something, we are more likely to be right. This was so exciting for me, and it sounds intuitively right. And it works great for people who believe that they can do something. What about the rest of us? What about those of us who don't already naturally believe that we can succeed at all the things that we set out to do? And he went on to say that we can actually create these self-efficacy beliefs. And one of the ways that we can do this is through what he called vicarious experience. And vicarious experience is just that. It's when we listen to people's stories and we hear about their experiences and we start feeling like, hey, I could do that too. And then throughout my entire career, I started seeing the power of vicarious experience and self-efficacy beliefs play out. In my earliest professional career as a personal trainer, I saw that people who would come see me as a trainer that did it as partners or as a couple would stick with it. They'd be like, okay, if he's showing up today, I'm showing up today. If he can do it, I can do it. And then fast forward a little later in my career, I created a Mommy and Me fitness and support group. And all these moms that were trying to lose weight, that had just given birth, who weren't sleeping, who were eating weird the way that you do when you have a baby, who had different bodies than they were used to having, they would sit around in a circle and they would talk about how hard it was to be in this new role and to get back to the body that they used to know. And every time they would hear each other's stories, they would be like, yeah, that's how I feel, and I can do that if you can do it. Fast forward to now 20 years into my career teaching college, I see students that come from non-traditional backgrounds succeeding in college when they see people like them doing the same thing. I see students who are recruited from all over the world that are more likely to graduate if they see other people like them doing the same thing. Now, Bandura would talk about, and I've observed as well, that when we look at our social spaces, we have all kinds of opportunity for these powerful vicarious experiences. We have what I call inside the box folks. Now, inside the box folks are like Brad. He looked like me, he had a similar background, he had similar life experiences, and then we've got the folks that are outside the box. Now, maybe these are our friends that are maybe a different socioeconomic bracket. Or maybe they're celebrities that you feel like, oh yeah, they look great, but they probably can afford to do this and have their own nutritionist and have somebody living in as their personal trainer. Now, all of these social spaces have the power to shape what we believe is possible for us, to create sort of a norm around what we think is how things should go. But those inside the box interactions have the most influence on what we think is personally possible for us. And when Brad was telling me his story, I felt more and more confident, mostly because he's an inside-the-box guy. Now, what's particularly unique about our modern spaces, we've known about the power of vicarious experience since the 70s. But what's different now is that a lot of our social space is through social media. So instead of just hearing celebrities getting sober or celebrities running a marathon, we're hearing about the guy next door that just ran a marathon. We're hearing about that guy that I went to high school with that doesn't drink anymore. We're hearing about our friend who is a single mother and just graduated from college. And those stories are so powerful at shaping what we feel is possible for us. So then what? If we know that how hard we work, how big our goals are, how hard we're going to work when it keeps getting harder is determined in part by our self-efficacy beliefs. And we know that those vicarious experiences are in part going to shape our self-efficacy. And we know that we have almost unlimited access now to those inside-the-box relationships. How then do we use the power of vicarious experience and the power of self-efficacy to maximize what's possible for us? And I think we can do this in 3 ways. 1, we take an honest inventory of our social spaces. How much time are we spending with our friends or with our online friends in conversation that is uplifting and empowering? How much time are we spending cultivating those relationships with people who are on the path that we want to be on? 2, we check in with how it feels in our social spaces. Do we spend our time with people who feel like our world gets bigger? Are the people that we're hearing their stories celebrities that sort of don't feel at all like us? Or is it the friends that we know of that joined a pottery class and now they made this really cool vase that they're super proud of? And I think, man, I want to do that too. And then lastly, the most important part, number 3, is that we curate our social spaces. And it doesn't mean we have to get rid of the people in our life that feel like they kind of weigh us down. But think about how much interaction do we have with the folks who drain us? I want to run a marathon. Join a running group. Be around people who are doing 5Ks, who are running Bloomsday, who are doing whatever. Surround yourself with the people who are accomplishing the things that can be possible for you. The people who make our world bigger. It also means that we are each called to potentially be a Brad for somebody else. We never know how a silly little conversation at a small town football game can literally change the course of someone's life. Thank you.